Hi, I'm Jack and welcome back to Real Opinions. This is another film from the London Film Festival. If you want to see anything else that I've covered from the festival, I'm sure there's a link in the description or on the screen to the playlist where you can find everything. We've covered the big films and the small films as well. There's something for everyone. Yeah, and today I'm going to be covering the Ben Wheatley film Free Fire, which comes out, I believe, next year, really. So it was the one of the very first screenings of the film, so I was very lucky to see it. However, I have to say I was disappointed by it. I haven't actually had the chance to see any other Ben Wheatley films before this or after. I still haven't. Just because it's strange, it just hasn't really come up for me to watch before. I've wanted to watch High Rise, I wanted to watch Sightseers, all his other films. But he was always one that was recommended as one to watch, or kind of the independent British director, like the new sweetheart almost. And that made me excited for this film, along with the premise and the cast. So I'll go into the premise first, which is that it's a 90-minute gunfight is the whole point. It's set in Boston in the late 1970s. A group of the Irish IRA trying to buy rifles from a gun dealer in Boston, and essentially it's just a deal gone wrong turns into a shootout, a full-on brawl for the entire film, which I could see that as being a negative from the wrong director, but from the right director I could see that as being something tense, something fun, and something just, I think when you can do action on a small budget in an enclosed space, I think that really gives you a chance to shine and show the quality that you have, really, because like it's in a warehouse. You have complete control over that set. You can do whatever you want. You can put the camera anywhere. You can film from any angle, and you can control the action completely. I mean, they showed it in like promotional material. They have a blueprint map of the factory, of the warehouse, and they show you exactly which locations people go where. So it's all planned out, and so the idea of just a heavily coordinated action sequence for 90 minutes sounds great to me. Like, that's essentially, well, last year, Mad Max. I mean, that's very different because, like I said, it's not one location, but it's a long action sequence that is just dedicated to being an action sequence. And then, like I said, the cast, which has this is just a really great cast listing. Like, there's Michael Smiley, Brie Larson, Cillian Murphy, Arnie Hammer, Sholto Copley, Noah Taylor, Jack Rayner. I mean, every single actor I recognised from something else, and that's not the requirement for them to be good. But I liked all of the actors as well. I thought they'd all done great roles. And they all did good performances in this as well. The performances are all great, and that's not something that I have a problem with, except for one, but I'll get to that. So what are the pros first? The pros are the script, I would say. It's that the dialogue is very witty, and it's very funny, mainly near the beginning, almost entirely near the beginning. It's great. It feels definitely like he's just trying to be a cult film a bit too hard, and he's trying to be a British Tarantino. But to be honest, even if someone's trying to be that and they pull it off well enough, it's still really enjoyable, and that's exactly what it is. It's just all the characters are really fleshed out. They're all really fun, basically caricatures almost, but they all mesh well and they bounce off each other well. And when they're all just talking, that's actually, strangely enough, that's my favourite part of the film. The bit before, like with the building tension, and there's jokes, and not intent, like as in not the characters aren't laughing themselves, like it's jokes to the audience. And yeah, just a really, like, this whole setup with the two independent gangs and then the middlemen, and just the chemistry throughout all of it. And doesn't just come from the acting, it comes from the script as well. Then we get into the action, and this is the part which I have the most problem with. It's actually the director, in that, as I said, if you have a small environment, you have all the cast, you have complete control over your environment in a small location. How do you possibly make the action hard to follow? I was confused for half of the gunfight. Not like, why are they shooting each other? I know that well enough. Like, it was the where are they in relation to each other? In a box, basically. I had no idea where they were, and they kept bringing in elements and moving around elements that they hadn't either properly established, or they just hadn't really established where they were in relation to one another. Like, and it took the fun out of the gunfight. Like, if I'm listening to people shooting about like 12 rounds a second or something like that for an extended amount of time, and I don't even know who they're aiming at, which way they're aiming at, where they are, it just it feels almost like work. I think, to go back to the Mad Max Fury Road point, people have really talked about how clear it is. Like, that's why it becomes a good action film, because it's so clear about what the goals of every character are, where all the cars are, who's attacking who, and every single even though there's like at times 3 different scenes going on, 3 different fights, you know exactly what's happening where, why they're doing what, and how they work in relation to one another. So if one car explodes over there and it affects the other group, there's no disconnect because it's all working fine in your head. And here, the moment guns start firing, you can't follow it at all. And then I don't think it manages to sustain the entire runtime, which is a shame, because I think if it was just ironed out better, you could manage to sustain a 90-minute runtime with this one fight. And the way that they sustain it is very strange, in that it's not just like talking and standoffs. Like, they bring in other characters. Like, I think over the course of the film they bring in 4 additional characters that weren't established in the very beginning bit where I said the dialogue was great. People that bring in other guns, or somebody that was actually in another room the whole time, etc., etc. And they take them out almost instantly. Like, each character only stays in the film for about 5 minutes, and it's literally just a tiny obstacle that they just have to pad out the film with almost. And they don't add character, they don't really add that much to the plot, besides the fact that it just distracts one character, or allows you to drag out this thing into a feature length. And that I found distracting, because while I was enjoying these people coming in, except for 2 of them which kind of come as a pair, while I didn't mind the scenes that they brought in, it just felt like, in my head I was just like, yeah, but why did you have to bring this in? Why couldn't you just do something really interesting with what you already had? And that just feels like a lot. Like, you have such a great cast, you have an interesting enough premise, and I think if you have enough creativity, you can make an entire film out of that. And it just felt like they took shortcuts, which I just found disappointing, really. And then the ending, which I'll briefly talk about, you can see where the ending is going to go right from the get-go. From a director that kind of, from what I can tell from other reviews, kind of prides himself on the bizarre, or just from looking at trailers really, on the bizarre and the unpredictable. It's such a predictable ending, and it's just, it doesn't give you any satisfaction to it. When in a Tarantino film, you know everyone is going to die basically, but there's still, at the end of it, there's just there's a true satisfaction to how it happens, and that's what it really just solidifies the entire thing as. That was fun, that was cool. And when the last note is a dud compared to the rest of it, it just kind of leaves you with like, oh, could have been better, is the last thought you think just as the credits roll. I know I sounded very negative in this review, but it's not coming from this film is bad. It's coming from I'm disappointed because it could have been a great film. I'm sure the other guys, real opinions, I'm sure the other guys will most likely like it more, but that's just because I'm allergic to fun. My review is that it's a 6 out of 10. It's fun, it's really fun for the most part, but I just can't get over the fact that if it was just shot better, if it was just edited better, the editing was annoying, the action just wasn't properly shown, it was so annoying that it felt like work for a lot of the time, and it just made me lose a lot of enjoyment out of it. And then also I had a problem with the ending.